Today's date is December 22nd, 2015. I'm in the home of Dick Martin. Dick is a World War II veteran of the Army Air Forces, and we are videotaping Dick today an interview on his services in World War II as part of the Stories of Service project for WIPB TV. So Dick, can you tell me when and where you were born?
Born in Marion, Indiana, October 17th, 1922, on 8th Street. And right now there's no house there where I was born in.
It's gone.
Okay.
Tell me just a little bit about growing up in Indiana and if your family had a history of military service and how you felt about.
Well, like I said, I went to Henry Clayton School in Marion until 6th grade. And then my dad got transferred from the Pennsylvania Railroad to Logansport in the passenger depot where he handled mail and stuff. And so we had to go with him, and I started school over there, Henry Clayton School. And it was just a 5th grade and on up, I think it was, because it wasn't much of a school, but it was nice. And it was quite an education because I was mischievous when I was younger, and I guess I liked to fight. At least that's what I've been told by my dad and mom when they were living. If I hadn't fought so much, I'd be a nice guy. And I was nice, but I just liked to fight. And I got in trouble.
Were you a good student?
I was a good student. I didn't get the best grades in school, but I did get through school. And that was the important thing to me.
How old were you as the war in Europe began in 1939?
Well, let me see, born 22 and 39 and about 15.
What?
Oh, wait, 22, 39, 17, 17 years old.
And what were your thoughts as you saw the war from the United States?
I didn't think I'd have anything to do with it because I was a young kid, you know. But I went on to school, graduated at Logansport, and went to work on Pennsylvania Railroad. And then I quit that and went to the naval base at Peru when they had built it, and I became an electrician. And I was an electrician there for about a year and a half, and decided, well, it's time to go in service. The war didn't quit, so I figured I had to go.
Did you enter the service after Pearl Harbor?
After Pearl, oh yes, that's when I went in, really. Well, I was in just before it. And then when Pearl Harbor got hit, I knew I was going to be there, you know, but I didn't want to go that way. And when I was working at the Navy base over here, they wanted me to get in the Navy. I said, I don't want the Navy. I said, I've been in airplanes before, you know, and that's what I wanted, and I got it. So I got in the Air Force.
So you went into the service as a volunteer knowing that you wanted to be in an airplane?
Absolutely. That's just what I did.
So that dream came true. Did you envision yourself as a crewman in a bomber?
I didn't have the faintest idea about what a bomb was or a bomber was at that time. You just don't know. All you knew was these twin-engine planes that you go up and fly in Marion or something. But bombers, I didn't even know about them. Not until I got in service and then got moving around, and then I found out what I really wanted.
Did you know after you were assigned to the Army Air, would have been the Army Air Corps at that time? Or?
At that time was the United States Air Force, and then it's on them tickets over here. Okay. One of them for one side and Army and one the other for the United States. But I don't remember which is which, but they had to get two of them. So.
When you entered the service as crewman and you started to understand what a bomber was, what was your wish or role in the bombing crew? What did you want to do?
I really can't answer that because there's ball turret and tail gunner and waist gunner and top turret gunner, and we didn't know what we was going to be. That was something that the people that was over you decided for you. And I mean, if I can only tell you what I went through. I went to that 6 months of Texas A&M College. That was to become an officer. And then when I had that little problem, then I didn't make it, so I had to start back at something, so I started engineering. And I went to engineering training at Gulfport, Mississippi. And I graduated there as a top-notch engineer. I don't know why, but I did. And then I just kept going from there to gunnery school and this school and that school. And then I finally decided, well, I want to be an engineer on anything. And I didn't even think about the bombers. It was after that that they sent us on up to the advancement.
In your advanced training, well, for those that don't know, actually, what does an engineer in a bombing crew do? What's his responsibility?
His job is everything that you would do on the ground as an engineer in an airplane place, where you work on them. He's got to do it only in the air. If your cable breaks, you got to take something back there and do some fancy twisting, wiring, and hook a cable back up, because one cable will put the plane on its nose, so if you can't control it. So those things is what we had to learn. And it was, to me, it was so interesting when I did it.
In your background in electrical engineering, did that assist?
I had electrical engineering at Bunker Hill.
And so all of that came together.
It did, really. When you think about how the electric and the mechanical type worked together, and it did on the airplane, because I was the only thing up there. I'm going to contradict that. Is Charlie Oren, he went to an engineering school, but he only ended up being a waist gunner in my plane, and I was the top turret head engineer. But he was as good as I was, I'm sure of that, because he went, same type of school that I did.
How would you describe your training? Was it thorough?
I think it was very thorough for the time factor that we had to do it, because we just didn't have enough time. Like, you go down to Gulfport, Mississippi, and they give you this quick training thing, and you better listen and you better write it down, because you only got it once. And I think all of them was that way. If you remember correct, and you're too young for this, but when you're in the service then, and you know that these bases need you overseas, and they're not going to horse around here, so they're going to put you through it and then get you overseas. So the learning probably could have been a lot better had we had more time, but we didn't have it.
So the onus was on the soldiers, or the
It
airmen.
was on the soldiers to really get what they were telling them. And it did sink in. Most of us, I know that it really sunk in.
Probably with some it didn't. Do you know what the washout rate was?
Oh, I never heard that. And it could have been bad, because some of them wanted that training, and then he said, well, now we were going to go fly in a B-17. Oh, no, I don't fly. And they had all that training, and they don't ask you ahead of time. They just assume you're going to do it, And a lot of them, when they got done with the training, they could do a ground job. It'd be a good one, but not fly up in the air and do anything. So a lot of them was missing that way. I've got a list of people that refused to fly. It was just one of the scared things, I guess, that happened. A lot of people won't fly because of being scared of the air.
Well, you took to it. You enjoyed flying.
Oh, I flew before I hardly got old enough to know what an airplane was. My dad, Marion, took my brother and I up in a biplane, twin wing, there at the Marion Airport. And that's what got both of us started. My brother went from that. He met a guy that was a pilot at Bunker Hill Auto Racetrack between Kokomo and Peru. There's a racetrack. And he met him over there, and he taught him how to fly a little plane, So my brother thinks he's a hot shot flying that plane. But
flying, it's important, but keeping it in the air.
Yeah, that was my job. He could keep it up here this way. I had to go crawl back through that thing and put wires together in the air. I wouldn't do it now.
In what year? I'm going to back up just a little bit. You entered the service early. Do you know what month and year you entered service?
Time I go in service, oh boy, oh boy. Can I turn?
Oh, sure.
Come back here. Come on, Dick, right here. November 11th, 1942.
Okay.
That's a good day.
Armistice Day.
That's a it's Armistice Day.
Yeah.
And I went from Logansport to Lafayette and signed up to go in, and they let me go back home, and that was the 10th. And they let me go back home until my parents know. My parents wasn't home. They was out in California with my brother. So I just turned around the next day and took what I had, suitcase, and away I went. Got sworn in November the 11th at Indianapolis. And I always felt that was a great day. It was just one big room full of young men. We all took the oath right then.
Yeah.
And that's when I got in the Air Force.
And when did your parents find out?
Not for about a week or so later, and I was in Miami at that time, and I called them to let my mother know that I was in service, and they knew I was going to do it. I don't know how they knew it, but they knew it. And she said, well, we kind of figured you went into service, but where are you at? And I said, oh, I'm down in sunny California, or Florida. And she laughed. She said, how'd you get there? I told her, what I did, And my dad, I know he was talking. He said, I just knew Dick was going to do that, because he likes to be mechanically inclined to work on cars and stuff, And it was something really.
So you went in to the service to fly airplanes. That was your dream. So your parents knew this in advance, I would say. Was your father, did he have any experience in the military?
Yes, he was in World War I, and he was a radio operator in France in the war. Mm-hmm. But he never talked about it. All the years that my brother and I grew up, Dad never talked about the war. And it was only after Bob, my brother, got in and we got together. And then we got talking about things we did. And then Dad started going back and picking up things in France, and stuff. But he was a radio operator in France in World War I.
Did he have any advice for you, his newly minted soldier sons?
Well, his advice, I don't even know if you want me to say it. He said, don't bring back a foreign wife. That was his advice to my brother and I both. And he meant it. He's very serious about that. But I know I shouldn't have said it. But
it's all right.
It's true.
Yeah.
It is so true.
Oh, yeah. So he had experience, and now you both went off into the service.
Yeah.
You said you were stationed down at Texas A&M. What other stations did you train
Texas
at?
A&M is the college, And I went there to become an officer. That was part of my officer training, was right there. I had to study Morse code and all this dumb stuff, Well, to me it was all dumb stuff, but it wasn't. But I had to study all that, and I got pretty good with it. But when I had that one little problem, and I couldn't stand the tension in front of an officer, they didn't think I'd made a good officer. I think I'd have made a darn good one. That's just me.
Yeah. So, did you train the picture of your crew in the background there? Did you train together here in the United
Pyote,
States?
Texas. Pyote, Texas. And it's not too far from Mexico, really. And that's where I had to work with them. This Charlie up here, he already had the engineer training. But when it comes to the 17, then that's where I had to step in. And the ball turret gunner, that was a special thing right there for them. You don't get trained ball turret at a school. You get trained shooting guns. And then when you get you together, they take your size and different things, and well, you're going to be waist gunner, and you're going to be tail gunner, and stuff like that. And that's where I had to come in and show them different things that I had learned on the 17. So it was quite an educational thing for the 4 other men. 1, 2, 3, 5, And the radio man, I didn't tell him nothing because he already had it. But,
Your rank was tech sergeant.
tech sergeant.
Describe your, I guess, position in the hierarchy within your plane and how you got along with the officers.
I got along with my officer just great, other than what I told you earlier, but that wasn't really my fault. I was just a lot hot-headed kid that knew how to fight a little bit. But when he said that word, you know, it hit wrong. And we got along just fine to all of our missions. Eddie and I, Eddie Zegley, and we got along just fine because we never had another outbreak like that. And Johnny Anello was just a peach of a guy. And all the crewmen were great. Sidney Fagelman, he's from up east. He flew the ball turret. Well, I've never flown in that ball turret. I've worked on them, all that. And I think it was about our second mission out over Germany. And he come up to me, he said, Sergeant, he said, can I ask you something? No, I said, sure, go ahead, Sid. He said, will you fly the ball turret for me next time? Well, I think my mouth probably dropped open, you know. I had no intentions of doing it. I said, why not? I said, you can fly my upper turret. So he flew in my upper turret and I flew in his ball. And we got back to the base that day. I said, don't you ever ask me to do that again. That's scary. And it was. When you're in that ball turret and you're just crunched up like this, you know, not for me.
Did you feel you were completely on your own against the Luftwaffe?
Yeah, you was too. You was up there with the, let's see, I'm trying to think how many was in the squadron, for our squadron. But when you were up there, you're by yourself. And all the planes around you, and even the men in your plane, can't help you. It's up to you as an individual. If you're shooting at a German plane, it's you doing it, not somebody else. And if you hit them good, they let you know, and you knew it too. But you didn't have any help like that from other people. We talked about it when we come back down. We talked about it all the time. But it's not something that you want to go home and brag about.
I mean, it's a crew in the respect that it feels like this team and this squad, but
absolutely,
it's an individual effort on everybody's part at the same time. You're isolated.
You're isolated right up here like me, right behind the pilot, co-pilot. They had their back to me, and I'm right up here standing up, looking out the top turret. You don't see anything else down under. So you're on your own, and each man, maybe the waist gunners, and I don't know this to be true, they were right across the window. But they always had their heads that way, you know. So I'm not sure they even knew what each other was doing when we were flying on the missions. It was just one of the things.
What was the mood like? I guess the camaraderie, the relationship between the guys in your crew.
It wasn't real friendly. None of them were, though. Because you didn't know from one day to the next day if you'd be there together or down here. You didn't know it, so you didn't talk about much of it. So you went each day as it came. And I know with my enlisted men, I got along with two of them. With Charlie, he was friendly, but his twin brother was with him. He could always get with him. But this other guy that I showed you there, he didn't drink, and I didn't drink either. But we got along whenever we go to town. We'd always go to town with them, because I'd have to make sure they got back to base on time, you know, for missions and stuff. And we got along good together, considered everything. But after I got out and left, well, that's way down the line.
Describe being sent over to England. What were your thoughts and feelings as you finally ended your training and went to the combat zone?
Well, we were warned at Miami before we went to New York. We was warned that you're going to meet Germans out there in that water. So you always want to be on your toes and watch for anything that looks strange, And that put the scare into us. Most all of them were scared of what was going to happen on the boat, not on the air, but on the boat. They were scared of what the Germans might do with submarines. None of us really knew what the heck submarines were other than in the water. We didn't study, beforehand. So it was kind of a blind thing for us.
And when your ship finally docked?
We docked over in New London, and we got out one day later, and then we got on a train that took us up to Nothampstead, England. And we got up there, and it was just raining so hard that it was horrible. And we got into our little hut. We had a little hut, and we were saturated. And they didn't even have no fire in the hut or nothing. It was dark. I remember getting to England, and it was so funny. We stayed up half the night just drying off. It was funny. Next day they let us sleep because they knew what happened the night before. But it was something. But we just didn't. We had friendship. We could talk to each other, about things at home and stuff. But you didn't talk about the war. We didn't know nothing really about it. So we didn't talk. It was one of the things.
And when you got to England, you came over on a ship. Your planes were ferried over. Were you a replacement crew? Did you join in an existing unit, or did your unit activate all at once?
No, we come in. This 603rd Bomb Group was already stationed at Nothampstead, but that we were a fill-in crew coming over. And we got our plane shortly after we got down, and we named it and all that. The name was My Ass's Dragon, and it was right on the side of the plane. I got pictures showing it on the side of the plane. And we just named, but we got along well. The men worked together, I'll say that. We did work together. But the problem always came, though, if you wanted to go out and drink, and then some of them wanted to drink too much, That kind of upset things.
And you were the tech sergeant in charge of, and your
I was
plane
in charge of the enlisted men.
Yeah. So you were responsible for those men.
I was responsible.
How you came in as you said, a replacement crew into an existing unit that had already flown missions.
They already been, flying.
Can you tell us about the reception of your crew, the new guys?
They wouldn't even talk to you. They didn't even associate with you when you got in that hut. And then pretty soon another group came in, a squadron came in, and we had two crews in one hut. But they wasn't with us, and we didn't even really know them, because it was from another place in the United States that went over. And you just didn't know those people, but we talked to them. I talked with the engineer as much as I can because I think it was beneficial for both of us to talk to each other. But the rest of the guys just stayed away. I don't know why, but they did.
And even the veterans within your bomb group, did they offer any advice?
They don't give you advice over there because you can change it from one day to the next. Anything I say to you today might tomorrow you'd be down. So no one talked to each other, and that was always funny, that you wouldn't communicate with somebody that's already been over there and been on some missions. They wouldn't tell you. It's dumb, but they wouldn't tell you what it was like and stuff like that.
Do you suppose that some of that kind of standoffishness was their way of coping with the casualties?
I think you're probably right, too. It's very likely you are right on that, because the casualties hurt the people more than anything else. If you get to know a friend and something happens to him, boy, you've lost something. And people didn't make the friendship over in England like they would here in the United States or something. They just didn't do it. That sounds funny, but it's true.
And it sounds different from a lot of the literature or the movies you see where they're all
just
buddies.
buddies. You're right. I'm going to bring this out. You might have seen that yellow, what was that?
Red Tails?
Red, for Italy, where the colored crew and they flying like this, looking at girls over the out of the wing. That's all nuts. They didn't do that. They couldn't do that in them planes. But I was watching that show, and I was sitting way up in the balcony with the pastor's wife. And well, I went up to Colorado to see her because she was in college teaching. And it was so funny. I'm sitting way up in this thing, and I had 2 seats on each side of me, empty, you know, and she was in one, Val Wilson, and I was in one. And I just made ridiculing remarks about what they were showing. I said, you can't do that low over a town and not even watch what you're doing. She's watching this girl down here, you know, and here's the plane just flying along. You can't do that. And the people started clapping. And I backed off and I shut up. But it's true, you can't do that. I was smart enough to know that this is impossible, what they were showing on television, on the camera. But I know that a lot of people thanked me afterwards and said, you was in service. I said, oh yeah, I was over there. So you didn't see it.
Yeah. And there were rules and regulations as what you and the pilots could actually do.
Oh yes, yes.
So
absolutely. The pilot, you didn't talk back to a pilot. Now in that type of regulation, you had basic rules that you had to follow. You could go talk to him. If something's wrong, you talk to him. But you don't go up and call him names and something for one thing or another. You don't do that. And you didn't do it. Because they'd kick you off that plane as quick as they got on it. And they did. So, crazy.
So let's talk about your first mission over enemy territory.
Mm-hmm.
What were you feeling, and what do you think the crew was feeling, and how did that mission go?
Well, that mission, I think it was Mercer. And it wasn't too far into Germany, but it was up north a ways. I remember that. And our squadron went that way, and another squadron went another way. You know, we go different directions. But that trip to Mercer was a submarine base, and they had guns all around that base. And we had ammunition fired at us. It was amazing. But we never got hit once. And we come back, you know, and everybody, oh, this is simple, you know, a piece of cake. But they were scared. All of us were scared when we went because we'd heard about Mercer and submarine bases. And everybody was scared. But we got back, though, and it was perfect then. From then on, it was a piece of cake. Yeah. I say that very lightly because I was scared, and you'll see it in them stories. We was all scared of dying, really. If you want to put it true, we was all scared of dying in the air, and it could happen. Thousands did. So,
what scared you more, Dick? Was it the enemy fighters or the flak?
The flak. The flak was all around us. I've got some pictures someplace. It's just black with flak. You could walk on it. That's what they said. And you really could in some cases. It was just so heavy. And I've had engines knocked out from flak. We've had to land in Brussels, Belgium, to put a new engine on it and stuff, you know. And those things, I've had to go through that. And it just wasn't no fun, that's all. You get an engine knocked out by a shell blowing it up, and you're scared. You think, is we gonna make it? We're going down, what? You know, you can't help it. It's just natural.
So when something like that happens and your ship is hit, what's your job and your responsibilities? Does your training kick in?
You know, my training was to stay right behind the pilot and watch the dash oil pressures and air speeds and stuff like that for the pilot. He had to watch ahead. So he couldn't watch down here at the instruments. So I had to lean over between him and the co-pilot and holler off the oil pressure gauge and stuff like that as we're flying in the air. So that's where all that training that I had in the States was really beneficial to me. And it was to most engineers, if they took it serious, you know, they had to do it.
How often was your plane hit?
I don't know. Of all the missions I flew, I don't even know how to tell you. I would say if we was hit 25% of all the missions with flak, I'd say it's probably pretty good average. Because you did get it, you can't. You know, a shell go way off here, but those little pieces go that way, and they don't know where they're going until they hit something. And I'd say about 25% of my missions had flak hit, and that's a lot.
And so, and there's nothing that you or the crew can do, because once you're in a bomb path, you have to stay in that box.
You stay there. You don't get off. You stay right there. And that's the truth. Like the one I was talking about when our engine got hit. We was on our way back, and they were still shooting flak at us. But it hit the left second engine in. 1, 2, 3. Number 3 engine got hit. And it just went boom, and that was down. And we was afraid we'd lost our gas and some of that. You know, we had no way of knowing it. And so I had to work with the pilot, co-pilot, to make sure we were going to have enough gas to get to where we had to go. So you did that, and but it was something.
Did you divert to Brussels in that instance?
Yes, we did that. When the engine went down, we went to Brussels. And they let the crew all go into town that night. And they kept me in the plane. As the engineer, that was my responsibility. And the pilot, he had to stay there to make sure everything was going right. And Johnny and I both stayed there. And we worked with the ground crew, putting that engine back in, the new engine. And we got it in by the next, around noon, if I'm not mistaken. But we took off and headed back to our base. And we flew that plane just as regular. It was a nice plane.
How many missions in before you felt like you were a veteran, or was it from the very first?
I don't think anybody, now I'm going to say my feeling, I don't think anybody ever felt like a veteran, because you didn't know when that one shell is going to blow you right out of the sky. And when you're up there flying and you've got 18 planes, right? 3 high, 3 low, and 3 medium, or 6 rather. And you got them planes, and you see one of them going this way, and the engine's on fire. He's going, you know. And you don't know how to count for those things. It's just one of them things that you're scared of. And when I say you're scared for your life, I think everybody said that at one time, but they don't like to use it like I'm a chicken. It's not true. You're scared because you have a reason to be scared.
And the randomness of it, like you had said, you don't know when that 88 is going to come through.
No, you don't know. That's the worst part of it. You have no way of knowing. I've counted as many as 75 holes in my B-17. Flak holes. It's a piece of steel. I used to have some because I got hit right here. And I got my Purple Heart hat over there. And it just went in deep enough to puncture me, you know, and then I had, oh, that's another story. But I don't want to go into it. But it did. It hit and it drew blood. And when it got back to the base, though, everybody's all right. And oh, absolutely, we're fine, you know. I didn't want to go to the hospital or take any time off from my mission. And I wouldn't tell them I got hit in the rear. So,
did your desire to stay on the missions?
I want to stay on my missions.
Why is that?
You want to get them done. Everybody wanted to fly a mission, get them over with, and then go home. And that was the whole purpose of it.
And you were scheduled to do 25 missions.
25 to start with, 25. And a lot of them, at 25 missions, they could dismiss you and send you back home. But at that time, they needed engineers all over that base. And I got people on there, I don't even know the pilot, but I was on their plane. And this all come from Atlanta, Georgia, where they got the records. So.
And you were asked, or you were ordered to fly additional missions? Which was it? Were you given a choice, I guess, is my question.
Well, when you're just your 25 in, you don't have any choice on them. you take whatever the day's mission is, and that's it. And when you get out of it, like I did, and I told them I wanted to go back and get on 29, and they thought that was fine because the war was still going. But then they kept putting me on another plane that was short of dumb engineer, and I kept doing that. And you don't get to know anybody on it, really. Maybe you know the pilot's name, but only for a day or two, and then you forget it. So, but you was a loner when you went on that plane. So, but
Did you, were you angry over that?
No, I was never angry in that respect. I enjoyed flying. I really did, but I was scared. Every time I went up, I was scared. Because you didn't know what was happening. I guess that's the worst part, not knowing the future. And,
were you ever afraid after your 25th mission and you took on additional missions, were you ever afraid that
not
you
as
were
much.
pushing it?
No, I wasn't as scared later, and I should have been, because you didn't know if this pilot had any missions behind him or if he had a bunch of them. You didn't know that. You just was put on there as the engineer. And you just had to take it each day at a time when they came, and you just didn't know what was coming down. Crazy.
Now, the first mission was easier because you didn't go deep into Germany, but I've seen on your combat mission sheet, you flew to Berlin a few times. Can you tell us about that?
3 times Berlin, and that was a long mission, over 10-hour flight from our base to England and back. And we would fly over there and flames, and we wasn't so high up. We generally flew around 40,000 feet, and you don't see too much from that height. But we got to Berlin, we went down under 30, 29, 30, and you could see a whole lot more down there, and you see all these flames and buildings down and stuff like that, you know, that had been hit previous. And they had so many planes right around the air bases around Berlin because they were protecting it. And they had so many fighters. Well, for so long, our fighters, the P-51 we had, and we had a P-47, and the P-51 could not go in as far as the 17 could. They couldn't carry the gas load. A 47 could. They could go all the way in and all the way back with us. But they were such a big plane, they were slower, and they wasn't a good plane to fight Germans. So they put new modifications on the 51s and got them where they were flying all the way in with us. And that was great, tell you, to have that knowledge sitting out there on baby goose, you know. And they were good. They were real good. But the 47's funny. Put them back, and they only used for short missions. But going to Berlin, that was a long trip. If you've been flying and you fly 10 hours in one of these planes, you're going to be tired out. But if you're active and you're no seats there to sit on, you know, you just got to do whatever you can do. And it's something.
Now, when the enemy fighters were heavier, and you went from your role as engineer to top gunner in your top turret, what was your feeling? Did you have any sense of satisfaction that you could fire back?
Well, I guess you got that when I was in training down in Pyote, Texas, and we were shooting at balloons. And we talked about it a lot down there. There'd be 5 of us on one of them fire planes that would shoot at balloons being pulled. And we talked then about the days coming, you know, when they're going to be firing back at us. And it's good to have that feeling to be able to really concentrate where you're shooting that dumb shell. And so I don't know if we ever really thought about that overseas or not, really, because we was there, and it was somebody was going to hold our life in his hands, or we was going that way. We didn't know. No one knew.
How often were you on your Top Gun?
Every day. That was my permanent position, right on top of that plane. Other than that, one day I give it up to the ball turret gunner. And that was it.
Once was enough.
Once was enough for that.
Out of your 25 missions with your original crew, what would you say is your closest call?
Well, it's going to have to be the one that we were shot down in Belgium with the engine went bad because it hit the plane so much. And the one shell went right through the engine somehow, and it just quit, just that quick. And we thought we had lost our gas and everything, you know, by having something like that, but we couldn't tell. You got gas gauges on them, but they don't all just register like you want to see. And so consequently, we did, as we come back, we knew we was going to land in Belgium. And the pilot, radio man contacted the Belgian base, or wherever it was at, and then the radio operator talked to the pilot. And we landed there. But I don't know if there was any feeling, because I don't think most of the crew realized that we had that one engine shot. Because they're in the back end of the plane, you know, and they don't know what's going on in front. So, but it was good.
What about, did you have a fear of having to bail out? Was that your worst fear, other than getting shot?
It would have been had I not bailed out in Las Vegas. But see, I didn't get to tell you that. There's so much I don't intend to skip nothing, but it's so much. We was in Las Vegas. In the little twin-engine planes they have for gunner training, you start out with a crew in the morning and an instructor, pilot up in front. And you take them up and they do their stuff and they come back down. Another crew gets in. Well, we were the fourth crew to get in that dumb plane that day. And he took us up, and then they lost an engine. And the engine just went bad. I don't, maybe too much on it or whatever it was. And he tried to make it as far as he could. But with one engine, it kept going this way. It just wouldn't pull. So he told us we was going to have to jump. None of us wanted that because none of us ever had that, you know. And this air parachute I put on, when you get in the plane in the morning, you strap it up snug, but after that, you just grab one and put it on. Mine hung way down here. It must have been somebody as tall as him and big as that, you know. But it was too big for me. And they knew it, but they couldn't take time then to do anything. And I jumped with that dumb thing, and I had my legs crossed, so I couldn't lose that strap down here. And I landed all right. When I got down close to the ground, I opened up my legs, and I was healthy enough, thank goodness, that I didn't have any problem. But I'll never forget it. But I jumped in, but never again. And that was something.
Yeah. So it wasn't, that fear of actually jumping out of a plane wasn't as bad.
Yeah, it wasn't as bad as I dreamed it might be. You know, you're up there and you got wind hitting you in the face at 200 and 300 miles an hour, you know. You don't think about that. And when you're jumping, you're getting the same thing on your face. And so I never had a problem in that respect. I don't think anybody did. I never heard any complaints anyway.
Was there a general fear among the bomber crews about ditching over enemy territory?
Oh yes, that part, no, they always worried about crashing in Germany and then have to run into them guys because they just shot you right on the spot. Most of them would have, not all of them. Maybe some had a big heart, but most of them would have shot you right then. We had our little pistol or automatic they give us, you know, but it wouldn't have helped. If we'd have got down to the ground, that gun would have never left the holster, I don't think, because them Germans would have put us down right now. So
Probably safer to keep it in the holster.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
As you neared the end of what you thought was going to be your flying tour, the 25th mission, did your behaviors change, or did your thought patterns change any?
I got a feeling, I can't really say what the others might do, but I know in my personal feeling, I was getting anxious to get out for my missions. And I didn't know at that time I was going to have to continue on for about another 10 more missions because they wanted me as engineer on the other crews, and I didn't know that. And that's what I ended up doing. But it didn't bother me after I got in the other crews. They were all inexperienced, and we just let it go at that. I wouldn't have said one thing to them to try to change it because one man is not going to change a crew of men. You can't do it. And I was the stranger. So
the outsider.
Yeah, I was the outsider.
Yeah. Did you have any? Some soldiers talk about superstitions and routines.
No, I never had superstitions in my life. I didn't. That's the truth. I can't tell you why. I'm more superstitious than my wife, and I am airplanes.
At the end of your flying tour, and they finally told you, "Okay, you're done. You're going home." What did you anticipate? Because the war in the Pacific was still going on. Europe war had another 3 weeks. Did you think you were going to train for the B-29 and bomb Japan?
I sure did, because I'd put in for it before I ever left to go to England. I put in for 29 engineer, and so they had my record on me. And then when I got my 25 in, and then they said, well, we're going to let you go back now. And then they put me out here flying missions with anybody that they wanted to put me with. And I got about 10 more in. And then I finally got out and come back over home on a boat. So, and I got over to England, or Illinois, that base there in Illinois. I can't remember off the top of my head. But anyway, I got there, got my training in. The day I graduated from my training class, the colonel says, the war's over. Woo, and everybody just threw everything up in the air. So he said, go home. So I did. That was enough.
Do you think you were unique among the crews that served in Europe in wanting to join a B-29 crew and continue the war?
Well, I met some of the guys over there in my training session, and some of them had never even been over to England. Some of them have, and some hadn't, because there was early ones over England that came back ahead of me, and I just thought I was doing the right thing over there. And here I meet guys that's already been over there in different squadrons and stuff, and they flew their missions and come back, but they weren't in that big ship. Much more better acquaintance. You didn't have open windows and stuff on that 29. It was nice.
Remote control guns,
Yeah,
sealed.
Oh, it was so much better. I don't know about the remote control. I didn't even never fired one, but I sure took training in them. So different engines and all that in it. So, but it was something.
Were you relieved when the colonel shouted that the war was over?
I was relieved. I wanted to go home. Now this Charlie, whenever you happen to get to meet him, he stayed in. And I wished I had a, I can only do that now because I didn't then. But I could have stayed in probably. I was in for a little over 3 years there. And I could have stayed in for another 15, 20, whatever, and got out, got my pension, and I'd have been happy. But when you get out 3 years and then you got to go find a job and you get married, and then you're hanging up here.
Yeah. Were you? Did you ever contemplate then, in 1945, making a career out of the service, or was the urge to get out?
I thought about it, but I was married and had 2 kids, and that stopped any thinking.
Yeah. What? As you look back, and you've had time to reflect, it's been 70 years. What about yourself surprises you when your older self looks back at your 22-year-old self? What surprises you?
Don't think it's funny. Do I look like I'm 93? That's what everybody's telling me. They don't even believe I was in service because I don't look like I'm that old. And I said, I am. Well, you don't look it. I can't help it. She does something. But it's funny, but it's true. So I don't know if I had any regret in what I did or not, because I didn't know this is all going to be like this. I thought I'd get old like, not him, but I thought I'd get old like normal people. But I go to church out here at the Bible Baptist, and I just understood now I'm about the oldest man up there. And I don't look it. They got men walking crutches, and oh my God. So I don't know if I liked it or not, truthfully.
What two memories I want to ask you about. What was your, we'll go bad first. What was your worst memory, your worst time when you were in the service?
The worst time that I was in service, we was on a mission toward, oh, come on, Dick, open your eyes. It was way over in the western borders of the oil plant, way over on the western side of Russia, by Russia. And we got flak galore. And everything in flak was just flipping around inside. I had oxygen bottles on both sides of my turret like this. And that flak was hitting the back of the pilot's seat and like this, you know, and I never got hit, but it just scared the devil out of us up there. And the pilot didn't think we'd make it back. Matter of fact, he told us, he said, prepare now for the worst because we can't take this flak. So we all just really was more or less crying. We didn't want to go down, but we come back. And I think that was the most scary time that I ever had, with that flak just flying all around right here, and me right here in this thing. So it was scary.
And it missed you though. That's amazing.
It missed me, and I got it later right here.
So you were wounded.
I
and
was
you have
wounded.
Purple Heart.
Yeah.
Now, what was your fondest memory of your time in the service?
Oh boy, I don't know if there was really any fond memories. I went into London. I wasn't married or nothing like that, so I can say it. I went into London, and another guy off the crew, we went there. Neither one of us drank, you know, but we enjoyed just doing things, and he played around just like I did. I was young enough. Don't you repeat this now, RJ, Rick. But anyway, we did horse around up there, you know, and I think that was more enjoyable that time than anything I did over there, because I never really went with other women or nothing. I wasn't connected at home, but I just didn't do it. And, but I think that was more fun than anything I did.
You got to feel alive.
I felt alive. Just a feeling, just a good way to put it. I felt alive that time. You know, I know the girls had to climb up the outside on the escalator outside to get into our bedroom. I never told her that either.
We'll keep that amongst ourselves. Let me check my notes real quick. You were in Illinois, the war is over, and you're discharged. Were you discharged at that base in Illinois?
No, I had to come all the way back to Logansport and then go to Fort Wayne and got my discharge at Fort Wayne Air Base. So they wouldn't give it to you over there. They'd just send you home, and then you'd go to the closest military base, which was at Fort Wayne at the time. So,
when you were discharged, what was your homecoming like, and what did you see ahead of you as your future?
well, at that time, I wasn't even going with anybody when I got out of service. I didn't know anybody to speak of because I'd been going. And it just, you just was a loner. When you went out, I'd go out to Clink's over at Logansport or Baker's dance halls they had back in the 40s and dance, because I loved to dance. But I never really cared about hanging with some girl or nothing. I just didn't want it. But later on, things got turned around up here. And I found out, hey, she's a woman. Where are you? Well, anyway, you do that. I don't care how you are. You're going to learn a lot of things. But I did. I enjoyed life after I got back. It was fun not to have put on uniforms every day and stuff. I think that was nice.
Did you have any problems adjusting after the service?
No,
as far
no,
as
I
any
didn't.
memories?
I had a lot of memories, and I think about them at night, you know, but it wasn't something that dwelled on me or did anything to me. I just accept them the way it was. And like even my dad told me that when you come back from whatever you're into, you want to lay it aside. You're going to think about it, but it's not something you want to just constantly be talking about. And I didn't. And it's only been the last few years when I lived over at, where did I live, Rick?
Farmland.
Farmland. I lived over there and I got acquainted with veterans and stuff, you know, and then they kind of put that urge back into me to talk about some of the stuff. And I did. And I was in the VFW for years and years and years. You know, been an officer in the VFW and all. But I just didn't talk much about what I did overseas. I don't even talk to Wilma about. Oh, once in a while I might say something that happened over there, but it's all past. That's all.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it's good for you and future generations to get your story out now?
I would like to get it out. I've got on that for me. I've sent it to, I don't know how many people I've sent copies of this, and they all think it's fantastic stories. They don't know how anybody could put that much in a thing, you know. I talked about getting hit right here, you know, in one of the stories, but I don't tell it all in the same story. In two different papers, you find different articles in it because you don't tell it all in one. That's the way it is.
Yeah, even here with an hour and me yakking at you, it's hard to get it all out.
It's been great. I tell you, I've enjoyed this because I've been able to sit here and tell things just like it was happening now, you know, and it's something.
How vivid are your memories?
Very, very vivid. I tell you, it's not hard for me. I was over, where'd we take RJ and go off that airplane right up there, that B-17. Remember, we went out there to see that?
Oh, it was Muncie Airport.
Yeah. And I went up in that thing, you know, and it was fantastic, just going back up inside of a B-17 like that. Yeah. And I'd like to go back in one and fly. I really would. I'd love that. Maybe I can one of these days.
And that's one thing that will be denied to future generations. Eventually, the 17s and 24s and all the old warbirds are going to stop flying. And we can see pictures and we can see film and we can see video, but what do we miss as far as the sounds and the smells and the feel of being in an airplane? Can you describe that and how reality is so much different from film or TV?
Yeah, I'm sure that other people talk to you. Now, as an engineer, your pilot, right, I'm going to do two fingers like that. That's pilot, co-pilot. And right here is the engineer. Right here is a bomb door. And then you got, from here to the wall, bomb bay, with a little track in the middle about that wide if you want to go through from one side to the other. And I had to do that quite often to go across and do things. And that's scary. That is scary because them dumb bomb bay doors are controlled by the pilot right up here. They open and close them. And it's a lot of darn air going in there, I'll tell you. It's something. And I think everybody that's been an engineer and did that same thing, walk across that dumb bomb bay track. It's had the feeling, boy, if that thing sucked me out, I'm going. You would have been, there's no question.
And that's an experience that can't be transmitted just through talking to somebody.
It sure can.
Yeah.
It's something.
And when you think about your great-grandsons, RJ and those boys, and what story would you like them to keep in mind of, not just you, but all the men who served in World War II? What should they keep in mind?
Well, I have faith in God. I think you gotta have that faith if you're gonna go into service and stay with him and let him take care of you instead of you trying to be the big shot. And I was that way. I had faith in God when I went in. And this other kid was with me and he was the same way. But the rest of the guys, they did or didn't make no difference to them one way or another. If they wanted to drink, they drink. Well, that was up to them. It wasn't up to me. I couldn't control it, you know. And so I just feel that with Rick and the kids, the way I love them kids, they better none of them turn bad. I'm gonna boot them.
And when you got home, you put the war off to the side,
I did.
and you got on with your life.
I got married. We had 2 boys. One of them was his dad. And my second son died of an enlarged heart 3 months and a day after he died, or he was born. And then I never had any more. No. But it was still a good life.
Well, if I missed anything, have I forgotten to ask you anything, Dick?
No, I think you pretty well covered just about everything.
Didn't you have to land a B-17 once? Didn't you have to land a B-17 once?
Were you flying, as in piloting it?
Didn't you have to land one once?
Oh, yes, I did land
Oh,
that.
you've got to tell me about that.
No, I didn't tell you about that. That's something you can forget about. The pilot, the co-pilot, he got hit in the leg with flak and it really ripped the meat off of here. So we pulled him back and laid him right across the front of my turret. And I got in the pilot seat. And the pilot, neat, you got to take 2 guys to land that 17. That's all. That's just too much plane. So he told me, and I'd already flown a plane, a little 2-wing plane before I went in service. So I was happy, I'd get and do something I didn't think I'd ever do. And I did. I helped him land that plane to our base, That was a great feeling. But I don't talk about it that much. It just something, those things that happened, you was there, you had to do it. You didn't have a choice. So, but you're right, I forgot that.
And when the co-pilot got hit, who was trained among your crew for first aid?
I was.
You were.
Before I got in the plane, we were still coming back from Germany when this happened. So I had to get down and cut his pants off. And we had bandages and we had things like that, but I had to cut all that off and then wrap just everything we had. I wrapped on his leg and put a salve over it that they had with us in our plane. And that kept it going until we got home, and then it took him off in the ambulance, and he was down for, I forget how many days he was down. But they were thankful that, I had just enough experience to help him out and get him back home. But I wasn't thinking about it then because he's one that I didn't like anyway. I hate him.
Was that the worst injury among your crew members that you suffered?
Well, that, and I didn't report this, but we didn't have anybody else that got hit by anything. I think we were very fortunate, very fortunate. We had a hole in our plane galore. And then when you talk to Charlie, he'll tell you about all these holes. But he was back in the waist, where the waist is great big, and your wind is right here. And that's where he had to stand with his guns, Not me, I'm standing up in this turret.
Did you feel vulnerable, or more vulnerable than anyone else?
Well,
Than
not
the ball
really.
gunner?
He was, with the side of the plane, both sides of that plane with 2 windows on it and 4 guns sticking out this way, 2 on each side. And anytime they come along and scrape the side of a B-17, you're going to hit somebody. But when you get up over the wing where my compartment was, you're not going to get too much as far as bullets unless they come through the pilot or through the nose. Then they'd get to us. But the rest of them, they could get it.
Yeah.
But we were so fortunate. I'll tell you, that's something.
Yeah. Let me double check my notes, Rick. What else have I missed?
No, you went back and hit some of the things I was going to mention. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Dick, thank you so much for being part of this. I greatly appreciate it, and thank you for your service to our country.
I've been so thankful being able to answer a lot of things I haven't even talked about for so long.
I hope I asked a few intelligent questions, 1 or 2.
They were, they were really.
You had better answers than my questions. You made me look good. So, well, thank you, sir. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dick.